If you thought Harry and Meghan were pretty bad before, now, if you haven't heard any of the clips yet, and we will play a couple more of them out before the end of the show, you must surely be convinced that these are two people who could not give a stuff about the royal family, couldn't give a stuff about her family really, apart from her mother, couldn't give a stuff about tradition, couldn't give a stuff about Britain, couldn't give a stuff about anyone, frankly, but themselves. And to be honest, Harry is as bad as Meghan. Let's talk to Angela Levin, find out what she made of it all. Angela, very good afternoon to you.
Hello.
Now, I know you've already seen it, so you're already in a better position than me because I'm going to be watching it tonight. But we've spoken an awful lot about the various bits and pieces that we know about. I'm quite interested in the sort of the bit where they're going to show us around their mansion, because that must be quite revealing.
No, they don't do that.
Don't they?
This is very carefully choreographed, actually. And what we do see is a little sort of place where there are some hens, chickens.
Oh, yes.
With the title about that says Archie's place or something similar.
Yeah, Chick Inn, isn't it?
Yeah,
I-N-N.
and the reason they've got it is that, this sounds rather strange in itself, Archie has always wanted to have chickens.
Always.
Too. I mean, how long is always? I thought that was indicative of what I was going to hear throughout, that there was masses of exaggeration.
Well, I fear that that is what's going on, and I'm quite dismayed, and I've said this several times already today, that the reporting of this interview is reporting it as if the things that Meghan have said are true. For example, this business of, you know, the colour of Archie's skin and how a member of the royal family supposedly asked about that. I just don't believe it.
Well, what's interesting is that she had a tsunami of wrongdoing and allegations, but they were carefully spoken about, so that you didn't know who it was or any other fact. It was just a wave of anguish, and she admitted her naivety. I don't see her as naive at all.
No.
But she said that was the problem. She knew nothing about the monarchy, she said. She doesn't like looking up Google. In fact, she doesn't. And so she didn't realise what was expected of her. I was very naive, she said. However, later on in the interview, she said that one of the ways that she was neglected was that no one taught her that she had to sing God Save the Queen, the national anthem. So she says, I had to look it up and Google. Well, there we are. There's a total contradiction. 1, 2, 3.
Well, exactly.
Really, is this a huge grievance? Can't you go to anybody connected to the palace and say, can you spare me 5-10 minutes? The fact that you hang on to this for years to make it a huge complaint and an example of how neglected she was and that she wasn't looked after is quite astonishing.
Well, it really is. Also, she had hot and cold running slaves. I mean, she had several nannies at any one time. She had a housekeeper. She had people looking after the gardens. She had people looking after all manner of things around the house in terms of cooking. She had, I think they took a personal chef with them to Africa when she gave that famous interview about just about surviving, you know. And, you know, it's not as if she didn't have people that she could have asked if she was not too busy bullying them, presumably.
Yeah, well, a lot of the documentary, and it is riveting. I thought I wouldn't be able to sit there for 2 hours.
Right.
It zoomed by. Zoom's the wrong word. It flashed by.
Yeah.
My mouth opened almost every sentence she said. But what happened is Harry told me when I talked to him when I was writing his biography that he'd spent a lot of time talking to Meghan, telling her what she can and she can't do. So he was responsible, or is responsible, for her knowing how it worked. The Queen gave her one of her favourite members of staff who had been with her for 17 years, Samantha Cohen, to look after Meghan for the first year in the monarchy, and a black equerry. This is a soldier who helps the Queen in all sorts of things. He was the first black equerry, and he was given to Harry and Meghan, or Meghan in particular, to help her. I'm not quite sure how many more people you need round you to tell you that life is not the same inside an English royal palace as it is in a semi-detached.
Right. I mean, you would think that she might have had a clue, given that that was what she set her sights on doing. But the other thing that I find extraordinary is that actually when you melt down the allegations that she's making, they don't amount to an awful lot, really, considering the amount of sort of, spin, hyperbole, and, kind of anticipation has been put. And I accept what you're saying, that it's riveting, and I'll probably be saying the same thing tomorrow, because you can't quite believe what you're hearing or watching. But when you get right down to it, the actual things that she says were done to her don't exactly amount to a hill of beans, do they?
Well, she feels that. It's quite obvious in retrospect that she was the last person who would fit in with the monarchy, not least because she really needs to do things her way. She's not a young woman like Diana, who was very innocent. She wants to be a bit like her, so she kept sort of saying how naive she was, which she's not.
No, I mean, she's once married. I mean, I was looking up what happened to her first marriage, actually, this weekend, because I didn't really know. And she was with a guy who was in the film business, who I think was either a writer or a sort of, somebody behind the scenes. She knew him for 4 or 5 years. They got married just about around the time that she went into the Suits show. And she moved to Toronto, leaving him behind. And their marriage lasted about 2 years before she moved on to some other bloke who was a celebrity chef in a restaurant in Toronto. And it's thought that she might have even still been going out with him when she first met Harry.
Yes, that is what is said. Her first husband, they went out together for 6 years, so it wasn't a quick marriage like she did to Harry. But the way he found out about it, was that she sent her engagement and wedding ring back in an envelope.
Nice.
And he said he was so shocked. He felt that he'd become a piece of underneath her foot, which is gives you an idea. But Meghan knows what she wants. She's in her late 30s. She's been independent, and she wouldn't give in. She wouldn't compromise. She wanted it all her way. She didn't feel that it was right that she should walk behind the Queen, and certainly not behind Kate and William. She's got no idea of the monarchy. So although all these people were there to help her, it seems it went in one ear and out the other.
And also, what was Harry telling her? Because presumably he would have been in a position to give her that briefing, if you like, to say, look, this is what it's going to mean. I mean, if I was Harry and I was going out with a woman who wanted to marry me, I would say, look, do you know what this entails? Do you know that this will mean that you'll have to behave this way, that you'll have certain engagements that you'll have to do, that, you won't be able to be yourself. You will have to be somebody who's constantly now under the scrutiny of the public gaze. And surely you would then say to her, if that's what you're willing to do and you're able to do, then let's do it. But otherwise, you might want to think again.
Yeah, well, exactly. But she was so thrilled at the chance of marrying him and having a title and money and fame and all the rest of it, that she didn't listen.
Yes.
She just listened. He told me that he'd told her, and he was especially careful to do that because other girlfriends had dropped him because they didn't want the spotlight.
Right. Well, exactly. And the other thing, I mean, they talk about the money quite a lot, I understand. So he makes out that he was told that there was no money basically in the royal family for her, which is absolutely right. But he also has a £30 million trust fund. So for him to kind of say, I was cut off from all the money, really? 30 million quid?
Yeah, this has happened when they moved to Canada after they'd walked out in March 2020, and their protection officers were stopped. Prince Charles stopped paying for them because they were then out of the monarchy. And Harry seemed very petulant when he said, he stopped my money, he absolutely stopped. Luckily, I had the 30 million.
Yes, luckily, very fortunate.
But you think, goodness me, you're 36.
I know. Well, I said this. I mean, I was laughing when they did that other interview where they did a podcast or something in which he said, we're hoping to become financially independent soon. And you go, well, sorry, most of us had to become financially independent when we were in our teenage years rather than when we were 36.
What I felt showed very much was Harry had really needed his advisors. He might have got very snappy with them. I often heard that he didn't like to get up in the morning. and he liked his engagements to be done in the afternoon. But he really needed it to protect him. I mean, he is self-destructive in many ways, and I think Meghan is too. That was a surprise, that you don't build yourself up to actually kill it all off by being so demanding, or so spiteful, or so undignified.
Yes. And I suppose two questions really now for you, Angela. One, what does the palace do about this? Because some people are saying that they need to respond in some way. I'm not sure they will. What do you think?
Well, I think they do need to respond when somebody who doesn't know about royal life comes into the royal family. It won't be for a while now, but I do think they can be so stunned by it. And the fact that they aren't a cozy little family that, you know, welcome you and with cuddles and kisses and all that sort of thing. They do need to make sure that they do understand what's going on, regardless of the person who brings them in. I think that's important. I mean, Meghan said several times that she wanted to die and she thought she would kill herself. And one night she was supposed to be at an event, and Harry said, if you don't feel well, stay at home. She said, I'm scared of being by myself. Now, whatever that exaggeration that might be, it is a very serious thing when somebody gets so depressed, and they do need a bit of rethink on that one. Otherwise, I think Prince Harry and Meghan's influence will fade increasingly now they're so far away and don't seem to be at all in touch with the UK, what we've been through, the loss people have had, loved ones died from the pandemic, lost jobs. And I think that their influence will go slowly away.
Yes. Well, given that they've now said all this, I mean, there's not much else that they can say, because she talks an awful lot about having a voice, but she doesn't actually have anything to say. You know, she's now told the story of what life was like and how terrible it all was, and we can all make a judgment on that. But, I mean, what's the next interview going to be about? Their new idea about saving children in Ethiopia or something?
No, well, what Meghan's plan is to bring compassion to the world.
Oh, of course. Many thanks.
Hang on.
Can't wait.
Because actually, it's a nonsense, isn't it? If you've fallen out with both families,
right,
and you have this thing of just dropping friends when you don't need them.
Yeah.
Surely compassion should start naturally from there. And she wants to set an example for what is right and what is good. That's really what she's.
Okay.
And she'll be hanging on about that. But actually, whether you can believe her, maybe Americans can, but I think we Brits are a bit more.
No, I think she has an audience, no question, but they're the kind of wokeists of the world who want to all sit around talking about, you know, how wonderful it all is to have your truth and your voice and, you know, your innovation plan and all these kinds of nonsensical phrases that get trotted out by these kind of self-help type people, you know. But most normal, hard-working people, men and women of both sides of the Atlantic, haven't got time for any of this nonsense.
Yes. Well, it's not all about just saying what you're going to do and telling others what to do. It's about doing. And we saw that yesterday with the Commonwealth Day.
Yeah.
You know, the other senior royals were showing duty. They were thanking everybody else.
Yeah.
It wasn't about them. It was about the Commonwealth altogether. So there's a sense of duty that you do because you are part of this amazing royal family. That you don't do it, you don't just tell everybody else what to do. No,
exactly right. And also, I mean, the point about what you're sort of bringing to the party, if you like. I mean, as far as the bullying claims are concerned, presumably that will have to come out in some way, shape or form. How do you think they're going to handle that at the palace?
Well, this is difficult. Meghan chose her words very carefully so that the bullying was very general. There were no facts, no detail, and no hint of whether it was a senior royal, a very junior, new worker, or somebody in between. And I think that's absolutely disgraceful because you're smearing the whole family for perhaps one or two people. And you can look at everyone thinking, was it this person who said what colour Archie's skin would be? And I think that's pretty unpleasant.
Oh, it's very unpleasant. And she knows precisely what she's doing. And by not naming them, it's actually worse. But I was actually referring to the people she's been accused of bullying, the ones who have come forward and are currently being investigated by the palace now. Yes,
well, they will take this forward now. That the palace think that there needs to be an investigation. Jolly late. The point is, those men in grey suits who are actually women, who are attractive young women, did it to help Meghan, to protect her, because everyone wanted Harry to be happy. And they thought if they kept Meghan happy at the cost of other staff members' livelihood, they would succeed in keeping Harry happy too. And that's a very good thought, but it's not relevant when somebody is being so appalling, allegedly so appalling.
Right. And what about his relationships with William and Charles? Because he made a big point of saying that Charles doesn't take his calls, which I think is a pretty private piece of information that he seems to be now willing to share with the world. And he more or less accused his brother William of being sort of trapped in a situation he didn't want to be in.
Yes, well, Meghan has told Harry that he was trapped. He said that he hadn't realised it. All these years he hadn't realised it. But once she told him, he realised that he had been trapped in this awful royal family. And so he used the same language for William. But sorry, I've been up all night.
I don't blame you. I'd have been on the white wine by now.
But what's interesting is that Meghan was very rude about Kate, very rude. And I think William would be furious about that. I mean, she's our future queen consort.
Yes, of course.
And doesn't say exactly what happened, but she said, I didn't make Kate cry just before the wedding over the argument with the bridesmaids' dresses. She made me cry. But I don't want to say what it is.
No.
But did bring round flowers, and I have chosen to forgive her. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, really, past the sick bag, honestly. I mean, it's a bit like somebody that you would have in a workplace sort of, shall we say, disagreement, giving their side of the story. But actually, the more you listen to it, the less convincing it is, because there's no facts, there's no timings, there's no specifics. You know, they're just basically kind of lashing out because they feel like that will do damage. Because there's no question that in my mind, she wants to damage the royal family because that's how much of a narcissist she is.
I agree with you. It's quite interesting because each of these accusations that came out, I sort of gasped. I couldn't believe it. It was one after the other. But when at 5 o'clock this morning, I started rethinking them through, I realized they were all full of holes.
Yeah. So, and I mean, any decent interviewer who was not Oprah Winfrey would have made those holes much bigger and would have poked a stick through them and then driven a coach and horses through them afterwards.
It was very interesting for an interviewer like me, and maybe one like you, to see how other interviewers work. Meghan was very kind. She was very understanding, very loving. She got the odd question in, but she would ask, well, can you be a bit more clear about who this was? And Meghan danced away, verbally danced away, and she left it. It was a gentle conversation in which Meghan got rid of a load of stuff.
Well, I mean, she basically controlled it, clearly, and was never put on the spot at all.
She's going to make, Oprah's going to make £7 to £9 million out.
Yeah, well, lucky old Oprah. But guess what? That won't even touch the sides in Oprah's bank account, because this is a billionaire we're talking about here. I put out a tweet this morning saying, Billionaire interviews 2 millionaires about their struggle, because that's what we're talking about here. It's laughable.
Yes, particularly when the state of the world is in such turmoil.
Exactly. Unbelievable stuff. Angela, a delight as ever. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for staying up all night. You can go to sleep now if you wish. Angela Levin, royal biographer. I mean, this is going to be 24/7, I think, for the next 24 hours at least, because, of course, the real interview goes out tonight. ITV, 9 p.m. It's on ITV Hub, courtesy of Harpo Productions and CBS. The great thing about these people is that, you can only use any of the clips from ITV as long as you credit Oprah Winfrey's production company. right? And so it's not so much that they are unwilling to pass on their private notes and private thoughts to us, but they want to make sure we credit the production company. What does that tell you? This is Talk Radio.